whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled "Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco: Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler." EV Magazine wrote on X, "When you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself."
Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse for the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse, not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
Rachel Zegler attended an urgent meeting with the studio's attorneys, marking the culmination of a developing drama involving Disney's problematic live-action Snow White remake. Multiple insiders claimed that the actress was immediately called to discuss possible contract violations, reputational harm, and the risk of impending lawsuits since tensions between her and the Walt Disney Company have risen to such a level.
I'm in the thick of rehearsals for Romeo plus Juliet, so I'm going to get out of here. Bye for now. The Variety story notes how a couple of minutes after posting this, she replied to her own tweet and wrote, "And always remember, free Palestine."
This most recent development throws fresh light on a production already plagued by problems at the box office, criticism on social media, and internal conflicts. Hubert's ultimate responsibility for the film's terrible response has been the subject of months of rumors, with cast members, studio executives, and even vocal fans pointing fingers in different areas.
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person.
Zegler is now at the center of the controversy due to her emergency meeting, which raises important concerns about how this once promising initiative turned into a disaster. It also draws attention to the wider ramifications and emphasizes important ideas that speak to the way this problem affects both the audience and stakeholders, highlighting the vulnerability of celebrity power and brand loyalty in the face of intensive public scrutiny.
Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged. Zegler isn't the only one who has made political statements, though. Her co-star Gal Gadot, who plays the Evil Queen, expressed her staunch support for Israel.
Following prior reports that suggested Disney was considering its possibilities to recover damages resulting from the film's poor box office receipts and damaged critical reputation, a startling legal turn has emerged. Initially, the storyline coming out of Disney suggested that top actors such as Rachel Zegler and co-star Gal Gadot might have violated certain promotional commitments or denigrated the 1937 original masterpiece in ways that were detrimental to the brand.
The budget was around $240 to $270 million. It has made $43 million domestically so far and around $84 million globally per Box Office Pro.
But according to subsequent allegations from Zegler's camp, corporate politicking and internal sabotage may have contributed more to the project's demise than any one actor's public statements. The actress's abrupt in-person meeting with Disney's legal team indicates that tensions have escalated, potentially forcing the company to take a more assertive legal stance in the event that talks break down.
Backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
As it represents a possible turning point in Hollywood where studios and their best talent compete for control of the narrative amid enormous financial stakes, it also draws attention to the issue's wider ramifications and emphasizes important points that speak to how this problem affects both stakeholders and the audience, the hazards to Disney's business and image.
EV Magazine wrote on X, "When you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself."
Generally acknowledged as a seminal work in the history of film, the first Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs marked the beginning of Walt Disney's golden era and established the studio's dominion in animated filmmaking. Naturally, there were great expectations for this contemporary remake because of its extravagant production budget, well-known actors.
I'll quickly mention this. The son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, Jonah Platt is the son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler and blaming her for the film's catastrophic failure at the box office,
with a plot that was allegedly modified for modern audiences. However, the film's premiere served as a sobering reminder of reality, with critics denouncing its divergences from the cherished original work and many devoted Disney fans accusing the company of abandoning the essence of the classic in favor of current messaging. Panic broke out in the Disney headquarters hallways when it became clear that the movie would not just do poorly.
I mean, he's totally right. Now, of course, as we covered, the movie is terrible anyway in its own right. It was probably going to underperform regardless. People are tired of the soulless cash grab remake thing.
Intentionally undermine the Snow White brand's reputation. By setting up an urgent meeting with Rachel Zegler, Disney seems to be prepared for the potential that internal disputes could turn into full-fledged legal disputes, as well as trying to salvage its reputation as a last resort. This scenario also draws attention to the wider ramifications and emphasizes important ideas that speak to the way stakeholders are affected by this problem.
The movie has all kinds of problems that could be pinned partly on the producer, like the producer did not do a good job. Nobody who produced this movie did a good job.
And the audience as well, highlighting the fine line that separates the company's success from the potent nostalgia that fuels its current retellings of classic stories. According to people who were aware of Zegler's legal encounter, the actress showed up with her own attorney, indicating that she was fully prepared for a heated exchange. According to reports, the main source of Disney's resentment is the way she portrayed some beloved elements of the original 1937 classic in her interviews and online posts.
Apart from all of the political controversy started by the actress. So the movie had all kinds of problems creatively and conceptually.
Viewers believe the studio is assembling proof that Zegler's comments, such as describing the prince as eerie or claiming that previous plot components are no longer relevant, breached a clause that requires cast members to preserve and uphold Disney's past. Zegler's lawyers have refuted these claims, claiming that Disney directed the actors to highlight the movie's progressive viewpoint.
There's no doubt that she drove the final nail into this movie's coffin. She probably drove the final 2 or 3 nails into the coffin.
The idea that, if the studio so chooses, what formerly appeared to be progressive commentary could suddenly be turned into a contract violation. This draws attention to the wider ramifications and emphasizes important ideas that speak to the way this problem affects both the public and stakeholders, such as the idea that creative requirements can occasionally put performers in the crosshairs when a project fails. As Rachel Zegler negotiates a complex legal situation,
and a lot of what you see with Zegler is really just this pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work.
Gal Gadot, who has been criticized for supposedly avoiding direct questions regarding the film's controversies, is still up for debate. However, as of yet, Gadot has not been summoned to a public emergency meeting. Observers in the industry wonder if comparable discussions take place behind closed doors. According to the rumor mill, Gadot's contract may contain provisions pertaining to brand protection and media cooperation.
She believes that she should be able to express herself and speak her truth or whatever nonsense, regardless of the consequences to everybody else,
allowing the possibility that she could also be pursued by Disney attorneys. But for the time being, it seems like Disney's legal investigation is mostly focused on Zegler. This interaction highlights a crucial Hollywood truth. Even though A-list celebrities frequently have a lot of power, studios can still use their influence to enforce contracts when a project fails due to negative publicity. It also draws attention to the wider ramifications and emphasizes important ideas that speak to the way this problem affects both the audience and stakeholders. Instance.
In reality, you have a job. You're getting paid to do this job. You signed on the dotted line. You took on the role. You took the job. And that job comes with certain basic responsibilities.
The conflict between studios demanding accountability for significant financial losses and well-known performers who believe they acted in good faith. Alarm bells rang in Disney's executive office long before this legal summit. Test viewers said that the whimsical nature of the plot was undermined by the film's updated tone. Character arcs had been so completely redesigned that the removal or drastic revamping of the dwarfs was one of the main points of contention.
And one of the most basic is the responsibility to control yourself and comport yourself a certain way publicly so that you don't harm the project and thereby harm all the hundreds of other people who are working on it.
Few anticipated the magnitude of the ensuing backlash, but those private warnings hinted at a difficult path ahead. Social media discussion became heated after the first trailers were released, with many fans saying the updated version denied what originally made Snow White such a timeless story. While some bemoaned the loss of whimsical traditional magic, others condemned the movie's concentration on social commentary. Rachel Zegler's media soundbites, which seemed to make fun of the romance in the original movie, also served as a lightning rod for ire throughout these discussions.
Because she's not stupid. Well, she might be stupid, but she's not so dumb that she didn't realize that by, for example, coming out and saying that all Trump supporters deserve to suffer,
escalating the online protest even more. This highlights the issue's wider ramifications and highlights important aspects that speak to the audience and stakeholders alike. It also highlights how short-lived viral moments may eclipse months of careful preparation and tens of millions of dollars in production expenses. For her part, Zegler has started to resist the narrative that portrays her as the main force for the movie's demise. According to leaked documents, cast members were specifically instructed by studio executives to emphasize the new Snow White as a strong contemporary character.
It's her friend screaming.
Wow.
And it's nobody was in there.
Can you go to yeah, that's very, so this is Bob Iger.
They even went so far as to provide talking points that were in stark contrast to the 1937 classic's treatment of romance and gender roles. These disclosures have prompted Zegler to feel unfairly singled out for remarks she thought perfectly fit the marketing strategy Disney's promotional staff had proposed. If so, Disney's decision to blame her for a portion of the problem suddenly seems phony. However, the emergency meeting suggests that in the event that a reconciliation cannot be achieved,
Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live-action Disney adaptation ever.
The studio can intensify its efforts to recover monetary or reputational losses. Actors are placed in a precarious position when a film's creative vision abruptly clashes with a studio's desire to protect its brand after release. This highlights the wider implications and highlights key points that resonate with how this issue impacts stakeholders and the audience alike. Rumor has it, however, that the blame game goes well beyond the characters. Disney's executives was divided from the beginning on how much to modernize the Snow White story, according to several insiders.
Infusing messaging is not what we're up to, Iger said. We need to be entertaining.
One group allegedly placed a higher priority on creating a new identity for the remake, while another warned that drastically changing recognizable components like the dwarfs, the central romance, and the fairy tale charm might turn off important families. Zegler has made references to executive sabotage, claiming that certain senior officials may have deliberately undermined the production's direction, maybe for financial or political motives. Whichever side was correct, the end effect was cinematic mayhem, as viewers were presented with a fundamentally altered narrative that yet used the prestigious Snow White moniker. The question now becomes why those leaders seem to be concentrating so much on legal remedies rather than taking partial culpability, if in fact different executive visions had a role in the final misfire. Additionally, this draws attention to the wider ramifications and emphasizes important ideas that speak to the way this problem affects both the audience and stakeholders, highlighting the difficulties that arise when several agendas come together under a single, strong brand umbrella. As if the fan outcry and internal squabbling were not enough, Disney stockholders are also voicing their displeasure. Some worry that the Snow White controversy points to more serious problems with the studio's corporate plan for adapting animation classics, which has been a major source of revenue in recent years. They fear that upsetting devoted followers could weaken the multi-generational ties that Disney has painstakingly fostered over the years. Accordingly, the potential for Disney to take action to punish or blame a well-known talent like Rachel Zegler is not only a legal issue, but also a matter of brand survival. The PR impact may make an already unstable situation worse if the celebrity publicly accuses the studio of betraying its cast or failing to follow its own instructions. This highlights the wider ramifications and important aspects that speak to the way this problem affects both the audience and stakeholders. It also shows how easily a popular form of entertainment may get entangled in controversy if it is thought to be compromising its fundamental principles during a crisis. Internal communications that have been widely released and reveal a dismal picture of chaos among Disney's ranks are fueling the anger. The criticisms currently erupting in public were anticipated but disregarded, according to some emails detailing executives' misgivings over the film's direction months before its premiere. Others disclosed the marketing team's sudden change of direction when internet criticism increased, including directives to minimize Zegler's interviews in promotional videos. However, once the negative buzz took control, the celebrity was an easy target because her voice and face were already linked to remarks about modernizing old cliches. According to insiders, those emails could shed light on how significantly Disney changed its strategy and whether Zegler's remarks were actually approved at higher levels before being deemed harmful after the failure if they are brought up in any formal processes, possibly prompted by the emergency meeting. This draws attention to the wider ramifications as well. It highlights important elements that speak to the influence this issue has on both the audience and stakeholders, raising the possibility of a convoluted paper trail that demonstrates the interaction between PR meltdown and strategic mistake. Critics contend that the film's demise cannot be entirely attributed on a single offender. A perfect storm of dissatisfaction is created by the reworking of important Snow White themes, the difficult task of appeasing both progressive and nostalgic fans, a world full of remakes, and the star-driven marketing story. The goal of Rachel Zegler's personal brand, which had previously been praised for her breakthrough performance in West Side Story, was to give an old fairy tale new life. Ironically, though, if the actress was really repeating talking points that deviated from convention, that same childlike openness might have heightened disputes. With an urgent meeting scheduled, it remains to be seen if Zegler and Disney's attorneys can reach a compromise, or if they will continue to argue, potentially leading to a lengthy impasse that further damages the movie's reputation. It also draws attention to the wider ramifications and highlights important ideas that speak to the way this problem affects both the public and stakeholders. It emphasizes that in Hollywood, artistic audacity can occasionally result in both disastrous rejection and transforming success. The entire storyline seems startlingly at odds with the idyllic splendor that has long been connected to Disney fairy tales for fans who are observing from the sidelines. Post bemoaning the fact that Snow White, once the pinnacle of Disney animation, has now turned into a symbol of corporate strife and misguided modernizing zeal have been common on social media. Some ardent Disney fans are demanding a total overhaul of the studio's live-action remake strategy, advocating for a return to faithful retellings as opposed to bold reimaginings. Others maintain a more tolerant stance, admitting that narratives and civilizations change, but they also voice their displeasure with the way the movie's PR was managed. These issues are brought to a head by Zegler's urgent meeting with Disney's attorneys. The studio's carefully cultivated brand reputation, which has been honed over decades, is at risk if it ever resorts to holding actors accountable for a disaster that may have sprung from equally innovative boardroom errors.